Hey, everybody. Just want to welcome you to another episode of Unleashed, a look into the pup community. Today we have Pup Scout on from Nova Scotia, Canada. How are you today?
I'm doing very well.
Good, good. So I just wanted, we'll just dive right into it. So your name is Pup Scout. Is there any significant meaning to the name Scout that you chose?
Well, that it's a little bit, but it's I kind of had a list of probably about 30 different names that I was kind of trying to go around, and I eventually settled on Pop Scout because I really um, like things that are kind of tactical and things like
Okay.
that. Uh, Common in this community, but I enjoy those sorts of things and going outside and making campfires and all that kind of stuff. So
Oh, well, that's a good name. It fits right along with that. So nice. So I know there are pups that actually have a what they call a born date. When they first decided to become a pup, that became their born date. Do you have one as Pup Scout?
well, I ordered my first hood, this hood here, on August 9th, but I've always kind of had that kind of a mindset,
Mm-hmm.
like and not not to say that pup play is silly or anything like that, but I'm really attracted to the idea of being silly and things that are silly, and just sort of being unencumbered and um, sort of working outside of social norms and things like that.
Okay.
So I guess the official date would be August 9th of last year. Um, but that would probably be the official date. But it goes way back to like being on 4chan and finding out what it was for the first time, and just being like, oh wow, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. Oh, well, good. Well, good. Well, have you always been from Nova Scotia, Canada?
Yep, I've lived a few other places too, um, but and I've considered moving and going other places, but I just have such an amazing family here that yeah, I would never want to leave them. So if it wasn't for them, I would probably move somewhere else. But they're just so great that yeah, I would have to. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
here.
I agree. Family's everything, so it means a
It
lot. So,
is.
so you've known for quite some time then that you have been drawn to the pup community, even though you
Oh,
may not have bought your hood until recently or last year, but you've always been drawn and attracted to the pup community.
definitely. And I first I was watching a couple of the other interviews, and I can't remember who it was that had said this, but they said that they first saw furries, and that was kind of like what it was with me too. I happened to see furry art, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And it sort of led me down this path to finding out all these other things. And yeah, I like both of those communities, but I the pup fits me better.
Uh, you know what fits you, so that's good. So being in it for a little while now and being attracted to it for a long time, what do you think is the most difficult part of being a pup, or is there anything that's been difficult for you?
Well, I think it all depends because I think there is kind of I'm not particular. I thought it was really funny the other night how I can't remember who it was. I think maybe it was River had said that it felt like he put himself back in the closet, and I thought I laughed out loud. I thought that was just such a funny thing. Um, but so I'm not totally open with uh, the majority of people
Okay.
that I'm into this. So I don't think that I face necessarily some of the struggles that other people face if they're sort of more open about it.
Uh huh.
But I think again, somebody else had mentioned this too, but the stigma, and I think that um, nowadays just kind of take themselves way too seriously, and I think that sometimes people are way too uh, way more concerned with other people
Mm-hmm.
than what they need to be. So like I can totally understand that somebody would see something like this and think, oh my goodness, like what is that? Like that's very peculiar. Like I've never seen anything like that before. Um, but I think that if they sort of understood it a little bit more, it would make a bit more sense. So I think it's a lack of knowledge and the stigma that would go around it. And I think
Okay.
sometimes too, just to add to that, I think in terms of media and stuff like that, I think that this very much applies to the furry community too, is that they hear one thing and they tend to just latch onto that and just assume that everybody is doing this one particular thing, or that that's an integral part of the community and that sort of thing. And everyone is free, if you're not hurting anybody else, like everyone is free to do whatever
Right.
it is that they wish to do. Um, but I think like the stigma and assumptions and that sort of thing. Just to be long-winded about it, I
Oh,
guess.
I agree. So, that's the difficult part. But if there's one thing that you've noticed over the time you've been a pup or wanted to be, is there anything that you would want to change as part of this community?
Well, that's actually I sort of spent a little bit of time with that question, and because I'm so new to the community itself, I'm hesitant to say that I would want to change anything about it, because I don't know. If it takes a little bit of time to get in there and to get to know other people, and although we're kind of all coming from a similar perspective, it's a little bit different at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little bit reticent to want to change anything. But I think one thing that I could say would be that generally speaking, people who would be interested in pup play and that sort of thing would be very high on the scale of like openness. So they're very open to new ideas and make like radical ideas and that kind of stuff. And I think that it's just really important for everybody to sort of evaluate their perspectives or decisions that they're making um, in light of knowing that about themselves, because I think
Mm-hmm.
that people who are really high in openness have a tendency to go all the way down roads and wind up in a place where perhaps they were not expecting to go.
Yeah.
So I think that as of right now, there isn't particularly anything I would want to change, but I would just say that it's a good idea to sort of, um, understand yourself, and that we're probably all very open-minded people.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I agree. So there in Nova Scotia, do you all have a big pup community?
Um, I don't know. Um, I have heard tell of one that's near me, but I haven't. There hasn't been any online activity from them in a very long time, and I haven't been able to get a response back from them through a couple of different avenues that I've tried. Um, so I think there's probably a strong likelihood that maybe it's disbanded or something along those lines.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I mean, even though Nova Scotia has always been very liberal, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've ever had a conservative government here. Um, it doesn't actually seem to be that popular here, which I find kind of ironic. But um, yeah, I'm hoping to meet more people, and yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask. I mean, do you have any close friends that are also part of the community? Are you kind of a loner in Nova Scotia at this point, or?
I do know for sure that there are other pups here. I went to a dance fairly recently that was sort of geared very specifically for that, and I did see two other pups there, but I didn't actually, not necessarily that I didn't have the chance, but I was very nervous. Like this would have been the first time
Mm-hmm.
ever going out in public. So for me to approach somebody like that was probably not, going to happen. But so I do know that there are other people, but I don't know anybody personally
Okay. Well, yeah,
who's involved.
and the reason I ask is because we have a pack here in Orlando, and we monthly have a meetup at one of the bars here, and just have a night just for pups. And that's
That's
actually coming up tomorrow night, that we're all getting together and going to one bar, and then we leave another bar and go to their leather night. So we actually go to two different places. So we all look forward to the last Saturday of every month to be able to go and do this.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you can talk to people in person and you can like mosh together. And yeah, I mean that'd be so much fun.
Yeah, it is. So you mentioned, you being kind of new into the actual pup hoods and stuff like that. But if you knew somebody that was wanting to get into the community, what kind of advice would you give them?
Um, I would have to say don't may I don't know. That it's kind of a hard one because it's such a multifaceted thing that there's probably so many things you could say about it. But I would say don't get too caught up in the gear necessarily. Um, and just as a caveat, I would avoid, like cheap gear because there's chemicals and things in that I would just, totally avoid.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I would say don't get too caught up in the gear and things like that. I was kind of fortunate that I had the opportunity to get some myself. But for a long time, like it's more of a mindset thing than anything else. Like I rarely wear my hood at home, but I'm almost always doing something that would be sort of considered, puppy related. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, I mean the gear is just sort of an auxiliary, excuse me, an auxiliary component to having that mindset and sort of gaining a different perspective.
Well, speaking of hoods, I have to say yours is absolutely amazing. So
Oh, thank you.
I like that. So, question: do you by chance have your what they call a pup certificate?
Oh, what? No, I didn't even know such a thing existed.
It does. What I'll do is I'll send you the link to it. If you want to look, it's on pupopedia.com. You can actually
Okay.
go in and do your own certificate. You just type in all the information, and then you can download it as a PDF file onto your computer.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then
I'm
then you can
100% going to
print it
do
off
that.
and frame it if you wanted to, and put it on the wall or do whatever you want with it. But it's pretty cool. I discovered that about 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. I'll put it right up next to the Kate Bush poster.
Yeah. So this brings us to the really your questions, and then the question from another pup. But if you could ask the next pup that I'm going to interview a question, pretty much about anything. We like to stay about the pup community. But what would you want to ask the next pup that comes on?
Well, I came up with a couple of different questions um, pertaining to that, but I think probably the most curious one that I had never really considered before, and I think I don't know 100% where I fall on this, but it was something that was brought up by another pup on Facebook, and I had never even considered this before, but it was and it's I feel like it will be a very divisive question, so I think it's a good question, but I wouldn't want anybody to think that I thought a particular way about this question. I just find the question itself intriguing, and the question would be whether or not it's appropriate to go out in a non-pup specific or kink specific place in pup gear. And so I'm kind of curious to hear what other pups would say about that. I would lean to the side probably of that I think it is. I think appropriate places. Um, but yeah, whether or not other pups would consider that to be appropriate.
Okay.
Um, and personally, I think that it is an okay thing to do. But I just thought it was interesting that this other person who had mentioned that fell very squarely on the other side of that. So I just thought it would be curious to know what other people thought about that question too.
Okay, all right. Well, I will ask that to the one that I interviewed tonight.
Awesome.
So now it comes to your question, and this is from Pupper Draco out of Georgia, not too far from where I live. He said, in a community that is as wide as the pup community is, what makes it easy to be friends with other pups?
Oh, that's actually a really funny question for me, actually, because I don't know. It just sort of in a a broad, generalization. It's kind of a lot easier to become friends with people who are of a similar mindset, who are really open-minded and have interests that would sort of uh, coalesce with your own. Um, but I just laughed that I got that question because, like, I could literally be friends with anybody. Like,
I know it.
so yeah, I mean it. Yeah, I'm kind of the opinion that there's not one person alive, not one, that there isn't something you can't learn something from.
True, true. Well,
Yeah, like
and
even
I
if you.
said that was the last question, but I've kind of come up with another one of my own. Do you have
Oh
any
yeah.
hobbies?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have many different hobbies. I sort of do a lot of things, and I'm not particularly great at any one particular hobby, which is sort of like an element of self sabotage in one regard. But I really enjoy, and again, I'm sort of hesitant to say this a little bit because, I don't want people to think anything in particular. But
Hmm.
I really enjoy going to like a shooting range and 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 that sort of thing. And it's a really great bonding experience. It's a really neat thing, just like a target practice thing. I don't hunt or anything like that, but it's just fun. I always had a BB gun when I was a kid, so it just sort of you graduate to another thing that's very similar.
Hmm.
Um, and I really enjoy music. Music is pretty much my favorite thing. So I really enjoy playing guitar and
Oh, nice.
like writing music and stuff like that. So yeah.
Oh, that is really awesome.
No, thank you.
Well, any parting words before we end this podcast?
um, I would say just uh, you know bring your best self to the community and try to be as positive as possible and yeah, support everybody in the community.
Well, hey, Pup Scout, I have thoroughly enjoyed having you on today. Don't be a stranger at all. I mean, hit me up anytime and stuff. You're more than welcome to. My DMs are always open and everything. But I just want to wish you, the best and enjoy your weekend. I know it's just getting started being Friday, but enjoy your weekend. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Definitely. Well, I had a blast, and yeah, I think this is super awesome. Two thumbs up.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.